Hello, I'm Nate Henley from the Advanced TV Media Production Studio, and welcome to the ACPS TV studio. We are very fortunate today to have a very special guest, Mr. Jeffrey Lee, station manager for WHUT, Howard University's television station. Mr. Lee started out his television career as an intern at the CBS affiliate WDVM TV in Washington, D.C. in 1979. Since then, he has worked in many different TV jobs and TV stations in the metro area. In 2011, he was named general manager of the WHUT TV, Howard University's PBS outlet. Mr. Lee is also a proud alumnus of T.C. Williams High School. Please help me in welcoming our guest, Mr. Jeffrey Lee.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me just say, I've been called a lot of things in my life, and one is when I was at Missouri Valley College, I was a Viking. Then I transferred to the University of Maryland. I was a Terrapin. But the most important title I've ever had is that of a Titan when I was here at T.C. Williams High School. So thank you for inviting me to be here this morning, and I really appreciate it. I wanted to come here today to really celebrate you and celebrate the school for what you've done and what you're doing here. I don't want to talk too much about when I was here because that was a long time ago, but you guys have gotten a great opportunity here and great facilities here, and I'm excited to see and learn more about what you're doing here. But to give you a little background on my career, as I stated, I did go to school here at T.C. Williams. I graduated in 1975. Any of you guys remember that? Nah. Anyway, there was a different school, as you know, beside this one, and we had a great time here. I did anyway. I had a great time in my time here at T.C. Williams. I left here. I went to school in Marshall, Missouri. I went to a school called Missouri Valley College, and I studied radio production. And had a radio show that I did out there, and it took me about 2 years before I decided I really wanted to do television. So from there, they did not have a television program, so I transferred to the University of Maryland at College Park and got into the radio, TV, and film program. From there, I did internships at a local TV station here. The Channel 9 affiliate at the time was WDVM, and I was able to get an internship there, and I stayed there till I finished school, and then I got a job there. My first job there, however, was not in quote-unquote television. I was in the television station, but I actually worked in the mailroom. There was a job opening in the mailroom at the TV station, and the executive producer called me at home one day, and she said, "Get your behind back up here and apply for this job." And I said, "I don't want to work in the mailroom." She said, "Get up here and apply for this job. You want to be in the station. If you stay in the mailroom, that's your fault. But you want to be in television, get in the station." So I went back and applied and got the job as a mailroom clerk. Little did I know at the time, everything that happened in the station came through the mailroom, whether it came from outside sources or inside sources. A lot of the information that was moving around the station at the time came through the mailroom, and I was able to not look at people's mail, but we also had a print shop in the mailroom, and we printed a lot of the materials that the station needed to send out. So I became aware of what was going on in a lot of areas in the station. So it helped me to discern what I was really interested in the station. A lot of people wanted to be, quote unquote, on television. You know, you see TV and people want to be TV hosts and personalities on television. For a time, I thought that's what I wanted to do as well. But after learning more about what was going on in the station, I found out there were a lot of other things going on in the station. And so after I was there for a while, I was given the opportunity to apply for a program that they had, was a management trainee program. And I was accepted into the management trainee program at the station after a year or so there in the mailroom. And in that program, I was able to move around to every department within the station to work with all of the different professionals in the station. So I got to see firsthand what went on in the station and all the different areas of the station. So I participated in the management trainee program for 2 years, really. And I remember one day I was in the sales department, and they had a client reception where they invited clients in, and they had a reception, and the station manager, the general manager, was at the reception. And one of the other employees introduced me to the general manager, say, "This is Jeff Lee, he's in our management trainee program." And the general manager asked me, he said, "So what do you really want to do?" And my response was, "I want your job. I want to run the station. That's what my goal is." That's what he said. Really, really? I said, "Yes, that's what I want to do." Because by that time I had seen different areas of the station, and I had found out that the real power in the station lie in the management of the station. And I wanted to be a part of that management. I had seen it up close and personal, and I said, that's what I wanted to do. So I was in the management trainee program. I worked for a couple of years on a program called PM Magazine, which is no longer in existence now, and a couple other programs at the station. And one day I was walking down the hall, and I passed by the program director, and we spoke to one another, and he snapped his finger as he walked by, and he said, "Jeff," he turned around, he said, "Jeff, I got somebody I think you might want to meet." And I said, "Okay." He said, "There's a guy starting a new cable network, and he's looking for someone to work with him." And I said, "Cable? We don't have cable in D.C. here." He said, "That's okay. You might want to give him a call." So the guy's name was Bob Johnson, who is the owner of Black Entertainment Television. And he was just starting BET. And I called him up, and I said, "Mr. Jones asked me to call you." He said, "Okay." So we set up a meeting. I went to Georgetown to meet him. We had a couple other meetings. And then he offered me a position as, what was my first title? It was Network Operations Manager. And what that job meant was, at the time, BET was only on one night a week for 3 hours a night, on Friday night. He said, "I want the channel to be on every night, and I want it to be on 6 hours a night. Can you do that?" I said, "Sure, given enough time and resource." He said, "You got 90 days. You got 90 days to get it done." And I was like, "Okay, I'll see what we can do." But in 90 days, we launched a seven night a week, 6 hour service called BET, and it went on the air that day. And my goal was to keep it on the air from that moment on forever. That was my goal. Actually, my first goal was to keep it on a week, not forever, just to make sure it stayed on the first week. And then when I accomplished that goal, I went to a month, and then to a year, and so forth and so on. But I stayed there as network operations manager for a couple of years. Then I was promoted to vice president of network operations. Then I was promoted later to executive vice president. And then later I was promoted to president of BET BET Networks. We had a jazz channel. We had the regular BET channel. We had a BET that we transmitted overseas to Europe and to Africa. Also, in my experience at BET, I not only got to learn television and experience television, I got to travel a lot. In the spreading BET to Europe and to Africa, I got to travel to places in Europe and to Africa and to meet people all over the world. And in 1991, we did something else that I had no idea I would do as being a television major in college. We actually took the company public. So I was a member of the executive staff of a company that took the first African-American owned company public on the New York Stock Exchange. And so that's an experience that I never would have dreamed of and never would have thought of that would come my way by being in television. But I got to, as I stated earlier, got to travel around the world. I got to meet many people. I got to go to South Africa. I got to go stand in the cell where Nelson Mandela was incarcerated for so many years. I got to meet Mr. Mandela. I got so many opportunities that came from being in the television industry. A lot of you hear the BET, and there was, yes, a lot of music. So I spent a lot of time in Los Angeles in the music industry, met a lot of the celebrities in the music industry. But above all else, it was a people business for me. I got to meet people, good people, whether they were celebrities or whether they were people who worked in television or worked in radio, worked in behind the scenes, whether they were lighting technicians, whether they were audio technicians, whether they were camera operators, whether they just pulled cable. It was about meeting people for me and experiencing what it was like to have those kinds of relationships with people. So as you pursue your careers, whether you stay in television or whether you stay in radio, whether you go into just still photography, you will always be running into people and relationships. And believe you me, my success in the business has not all been my doing. It has been because of those relationships. And those relationships can take you many places. One of the guys, the day I left Channel 9 to go to BET, I talked to the station manager. I went to his office and I told him, I said, I'm going to turn the job down. I'm going to stay here because I was comfortable at Channel 9. They knew me, I knew them. I knew the job that I was asked to do, and I was comfortable. Going to BET, I was afraid. I didn't know anybody, and I was asked to start something from scratch myself. I did not trust me at the time. But the general manager, after I told him I was staying, or the station manager, after I told him I was staying, he looked at me and said, "Are you finished?" I said, "Finished?" He said, "You finished talking?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You're fired. Now you don't have a choice. Get out of here." He said, "But remember this, we will always be here for you. If you need something, call us up. Come see us. We will be here to support you." And that was life-changing for me because every stage of my career, every step that I went through, even till today, it is because of relationships that, one, I've enjoyed what I've done, but it has been a part of being successful in what I was doing, is those relationships. It and those relationships just carry on throughout life. That gentleman who fired me that day ended up being the first African American to be a member of the Augusta National Golf Club in Augusta, Georgia, where they play the Masters every year. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine and I were fortunate enough to go to the Masters. And that station manager, as a member of Augusta National, was there, and I ran into him again. I hadn't seen him in years. And he was there, and I greeted him, and we talked about that day. He also gave me another piece of advice when I was still working at the station. He was changing his golf clubs. And so he asked me, he said, "You want a set of golf clubs?" And I said, "I don't play golf." And he said, "Well, if you want to be in this business, you might want to learn to play golf." He said, "So take these golf clubs home and learn to play golf." And I never will forget the day I called my office one day. My office called me and asked me where I was. And I said I was at the doctor's office. I had taken a slick day off, and I was at the doctor's office. And he said, "What doctor?" I said, "Dr. Green." And that was the greens on the golf course. I just had a play with words there. I was at Dr. Green's office. But many times, again, relationships, because of those relationships, opportunities present themselves. Some happen on the golf course. Some happen at the TV station. Some happen at the radio station. Some happen in South Africa. Some happen in London and in Paris. A lot of places I've been because of my relationships, but also because of my relationship with the media and the media business. So it's been a good career. It's continuing now. I'm in public television now. After I finished 20 years, 18 years at BET, I took some time off. I decided to go do some things that I had thought about for a while. I wanted to get my scuba diving certification. So I went, got my scuba diving certification, played a little more golf till I tore a labrum in my shoulder. I just played till I wore the shoulder out and did some things there. And then there's some life lessons that come along with life. Shortly after I left BET, my youngest son was diagnosed with cancer. He had a bone cancer, something called osteosarcoma. And so for 2 years, he lived and fought with cancer until he passed away 2 years after his diagnosis with cancer. And it was another time where relationships came into play in my life. Uh, um, it was just overwhelming, the outreach, the pouring out of love that we got from people. My wife and my other son got from people because of the relationships we had, and the television industry was a huge part of it. I never will forget that Thanksgiving Day game. Watch a lot of football on Thanksgiving Day, and so my son had passed a couple of days before Thanksgiving, and some of you see James Brown on CBS Sports. James Brown is a friend of mine as well, and James mentioned on the air that day prayers for me and my family because of the loss of our son. And those are the kinds of things that come back to you because of relationships that you establish throughout the years. And the television industry, the media industry overall, has changed so much over the years since I've been in the business. But you guys are coming into a new media. But those relationships as people are the ones that I want you to look out for as you go through your career and as you go through your life. Because as you can see, media has changed so much just in the time that you've been dealing with it. Over my 40 years in it, it has changed tremendously, but those relationships remain. And so what I would have for you is to have a life that has value through relationships with the people as you use these tools of media to navigate yourself through your lives. So that's sort of the story, my story in about 15 minutes. There's a little bit more to it, but I'd like to hear some of your questions and some of your stories, if you don't mind. So thank you very much for having me here today. Hello.
Hi, my name is Kevin Granados. I'm a junior, planning to go to college. I'm probably gonna major in film. I just have a question. So by the time I graduate, what type of skills would uh, studios or studios be looking for?
Okay, it depends on what you want to do. Um, One of the things, I've hired hundreds of people over my career, but I've never hired anyone because of what they wanted to do. I've hired everybody who was able to do what I needed to have done. So when you go to an interview to apply for a job, know about what that company does, first of all. Know what they need and position yourself to be able to present yourself as an answer to their question. Not just, hey, I'm here, I'm the best, I'm the greatest. But if they don't need the greatest, they will be looking for someone else. So certain skills that will translate. The ability to write. I don't care whether you're in the technical side or whether you are in the journalism side. The ability to write is going to always be helpful for you. Another one is the ability to learn, and that seems a little interesting or funny to say, but one of the things that I say to a lot of people that I've hired, especially students right out of college, I said, I'm going to see you in this light. You made a commitment to go to college. You made a commitment to study a particular area of study, and then you stuck to it, and you finished it. You stuck to it. So I want somebody who has those skills, who can set a goal, who goes about accomplishing that goal. I can teach you the business, but I can't teach you the drive and the skill to want to learn, to want to be there. So learn basics, writing, reading, the ability, like I said, the ability to write, and as I've been saying all morning, the ability to communicate with people is so important because none of us do any of this on our own.
I really want to study mass communications when I go to college, but I hear stories and from other people who are adults who say that they did mass communications and they're not really doing really good in it. and they're in little internships and everything, but it's not working out, what separates them from a success story?
Well, I think one of the things you have to keep in mind when you're in mass communications in communications is that you're almost an entrepreneur. You have to have an entrepreneurial attitude about how you approach it. So you've got to say, I am responsible for my success, and I will do the things that are necessary for me to be successful, and that somebody else is not going to just hand it to you on a platter or give it to you. Because I have a job here now, I will be able to sustain myself and do whatever I want to do. That's not true. You're going to have, it's like people say some people got lucky. My definition of luck is when opportunity meets preparation. That's where luck lies. You prepare yourself for opportunities that will come along, and then you will, quote unquote, be lucky, be successful. But if you don't have the preparation when the opportunity comes, you miss it. And then you end up in the position of not being where you want to be, or be having the success that you want to do. You've got to work at it. You've got to be an entrepreneur about you and your future. So what you want to do, if you want to be a writer, don't go take a job, driving buses. Write constantly and send it out to people. Do what you want to become, or be what you want to become, and then you will have a better chance at it. I mean, like a lot of people say, we live in a country that has sort of equality in a lot of areas, but opportunity is not one of those areas. Everybody doesn't get the opportunity. You got to make it yourself.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Kalisa. So I just wanted to know, what really intrigued you into doing television? What really made you want to do television? And when did you, know that that's something you really wanted to do?
Well, that's a good question. That's a really good question. Because I spent my time here at T.C. Williams, not all of it, but when I left, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I remember writing an essay when I was here about where I would be when I was 30 years old. Didn't happen. I did not know what I wanted to do. I mean, I have something I used to say to my kids. I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I don't know when I'm going to grow up. I don't know what that means. Some people can say, I want to do this, and they can set that path. I wasn't one of those people. I said, I'll do what I have to do, and so forth and so on. It's like, I guess, when I left Missouri Valley College and went to the University of Maryland, that was a seminal moment for me, because I said I specifically wanted to do television. I had done radio, I had done some acting, but I had never said I specifically wanted to do television until then. And so at that point, I got into a television program, and I said, I kind of like this. So that was it for me.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your take on social media being mixed with television?
Okay, that's a long answer, but let me see if I can give you a short version of it. There's something called the Communications Act of 1934, which was written in order to sort of put guide rails and guidelines on television, radio, how it operates and so forth. It was updated a little bit back in, I believe, 1996. But there's a proposal to rewrite the whole regulations now, the Communications Act, to cover all of the technology that didn't exist when it was originally written. If you look at that question from the standpoint of professionals in the industry, I have a take that things like YouTube totally destroy production value. When I was in school, we learned that production values. I mean, everything from the flicker rate to everything else and the value of the production, how you create good YouTube people just took a phone, shot some stuff, put it up there, and called it video. What the heck is this? So from that standpoint, I was like, the art of television that I was brought up in has been seriously eroded, even though it is coming back now with the new technology and everything from your cell phones to all the other cameras there. But the art of television has changed. And so we accept different levels of, I'm not going to say mediocrity, but just different levels of production as production, whereas in the past that would never have never passed muster. The other part of it is what television is supposed to do, and what social media does is give voice to as many people as possible. I like to say what we do in public television is what we do is take a sort of milk crate and put it in the the city square, and allow different people to come and stand on the milk crate so you can rise above the crowd and get your voice heard from time to time. But social media just allows everybody's voice to be heard, and sometimes it's white noise. It's not really a voice. But it's a whole lot of voices out there, and there are no filters on it. I mean, I believe in filters, and we don't have any filters. I mean, just yesterday there was a report came out of Congress how the Russians had used social media to affect the elections, and how they had targeted us in specific areas of the American life with different messages and everything. So it's a double-edged sword, and that just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should do it. So I'm still struggling with that. As an old school communications person, I have a lot of respect for the way it was done as opposed to the way it's been done. I have my son is totally new school, social media, and I remember he did not own a television for the longest time. He just didn't own a television, and he got all of his news off social media and so forth and so on. He would call me and say something had happened, and then an hour later I'd hear it on the news, and he had already heard about it and so forth and so on. So there are good things about social media, but there are things that make me nervous about social media, and it's a slippery road that I think we're going to have to take a look at as a society as we go forward.
Thank you.
Good question.
My name's Ira.
Hi.
So I want to work in television and find myself in a news station or somewhere in the industry. What advice would you give me or to anyone here who wants to do the same thing to get there, like regarding education and internships and all that?
The thing I would say is start now. Don't wait. You don't want to be in television or an anchor later in life. You want to do it now. So get some friends, get yourself in this class right here. Make sure, do not leave this class without having a reel of your own, of your work. And so that when your work comes to somebody like me, I can see it already, as opposed to have to vision what it would look like. I can see what strengths you have, what weaknesses you have, and whether or not I have the time or the inclination to work on them with you to get you to. But the other thing is, if you want to be a talent, let me be able to see if you got it. Now, I can't describe it. Nobody can describe it. You will always hear from talent perspective, people talk about she's got it or he's got it. Nobody knows what it is. If we knew, we would bottle it and make $1 billion. But you've got to be you, because that's what sells, is that's a different personality that people like, that I like, that some people like to see. But in terms of what should you do, how should you approach it, start now. Start doing field pieces, start doing sit-down anchor pieces, start creating that portfolio of work, and it will help you over time to watching your own material to see yourself get better, so that when you do move out to, you want to take it to somebody else to get a job, you've got some things that you're proud of.
I was also wanted to refer to like the perspective behind the scene or behind the camera, because I want to work like what you did, like what you mentioned earlier. You said you had a firsthand experience with like each department, and that's like exactly what I see myself doing or wanting to do, just having access to all departments.
Yeah, I would do exactly as I did. Get an opportunity to get in wherever you can, because if you get in, you don't have to stay where you get in. I'll give you an example. When I was in Channel 9 in the management trainee program, something happened here in the city that had never happened before and has never happened since, thank God. There was you guys may have heard of something called Air Florida, a crash at National Airport into the river. Well, that day it was snowing. And it was snowing. It may have been 8 to 10 inches of snow on the ground. There was also a major metro crash that day. So we had an airplane in the river, a crash on metro, and the roads were all but impassable with snow. No news organization, local news organization, is set up to handle something like that, a day like that. So they need to pull from all their resources. And they pulled everyone in the station to do something. And so if you are in a situation when that opportunity presents itself, then you have the chance to really show what you can do and to, be seen by people who can make help make your dreams come true with that. So the key is get yourself in that position. So like I said earlier, luck comes when opportunity meets preparation. So prepare yourself for whatever comes up, but get in the environment you want to be. If you want to be in a film company, go intern at a film company or a film. Do it for free for a while if you can. This is one of those industries where at the entry level, it's not always pretty. It's people who come in and do it for free until they can get their craft perfected and somebody else sees that, and then they move on to the next level. Mm-hmm. So go do what you want to do.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sir, why are you here? Yes. Just come to the microphone and tell me.
Be in the spot, but all right.
See, be prepared. You never know.
I'm here because I like this class a lot. I'm a senior, and recently I figured out that I really like photography and filmmaking and whatnot. And even though I'm in TV Media 1, I know a lot of the material we're learning, but I'd like to perfect it and grow on it. And even though it might not help me to be learning the same thing over, even just putting it in one position and just focusing everything on one thing, I don't know, I just kind of want to excel.
Well, don't back yourself in that corner of thinking it might not help you, because you may go at the same material but see it from a different perspective at a different time you're doing it. And then that will give you greater perspective on how this photography works and how everything. I mean, you may know the mechanics of the cameras and everything, but now you see it's almost the difference of taking the same picture at dusk and dawn. It's done totally different. It's the same exact picture there, but if you take it at dusk, it looks this way, and if you take it at dawn, it looks another way, and you gathered that knowledge now. So I would suggest you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, because I mean, overall, especially being at TC with all the resources we have, I think it was like it's my senior year, and you see everybody going out taking AP this and AP that. I kind of wanted to focus my senior year on my creative side and kind of do what you're doing and just focusing it where I want to go and not what everybody else is doing, to hopefully live like you, doing what I want to do when I grow up.
Well, that'll work. Great. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. I see my host coming back, so my time is up, and I thank you for yours. I really appreciate it. I am really excited and thankful to be here because, as I stated earlier, one of the most important titles that I carry is that I'm also a Titan. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you to Mr. Lee, and quick round of applause again. And thank you for attending. This concludes our program.